Some tea?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, it's like I don't know. I don't know what it is, but it's basically it's
everything.
nice, and it's got no caffeine in it. There's the flowers and stuff like this.
No mushrooms.
No washes. Plant medicine.
Yeah.
You were saying.
Yeah, never did plant medicine, and went and did 5 medicines. I did the THC, Santa Maria Isle on the first night. The next day we did the Cambo, and I did straight with the Cambo. I did Sinanyang. Oh, holy shit! It's the most painful experience of my life, and I've had a baby. It was horrifically beautiful in the same time because I found my medicine.
Painful emotionally or physically?
Physically, it's like
getting sick and
no. The Cambo makes you get sick. The Sinanyang is an oil that goes into your eyes, and it feels like someone's poured petrol in your eyes and set it on fire. Like I can't even explain the severity of the pain. Like
you put the medicine in your eye.
You put it in your eye. You lie down. He puts a drop on each corner of each eye, and when he says open your eyes, you open your eye, and then the shit hits the fan. Like it's. You can literally feel a flame of fire rushing through your eyes, through your face, and I was screaming, I was punching the wall, I was like, what the fuck is this? What the fuck are you people doing to me? Get the fuck away from me. And he's like, it brings you into that fight or flight, and you panic like you never, because you think you're going to die. This is how bad it is. And then something just took over. Something was like, Jen, you have this. Do what he's after telling you to do. Breathe through it. And the minute I came down from my head, the minute I stopped panicking and I spoke to myself and brought myself back down, the pain completely went, like in seconds was gone, and I felt this rush of energy from my mind right down into my core. It's the most grounding medicine I've ever experienced, and I felt euphoric. I was like, this is the best thing that's ever happened. And people were lying on the floor, like grown men were punching the walls. They were screaming because they couldn't come out of it. And they were like, what's she talking about? This is fucking horrible. And I was like, just breathe. I was like, there was one fella beside me, and his face, God love him, he was suffering. His face was red. And I was like, breathe. Because you open your eyes for a second and it hits you. And then you squeeze them tight. But the more you squeeze it tight, you're prolonging it. So the battle is to keep blinking, even when it feels like someone is like has a fire pouring it into your eyes. I know probably.
And what difference did the breathing make? So you're saying you had the medicine in your eyes.
Medicine was in my eyes.
The other, of course.
I was holding my head. I was punching the floor. I was like panicking.
So and the other people were panicking too.
Everybody.
But then you made it through. Because I
made it through within 2 or 3 minutes. Yeah, it was very quick. Some people were 15 minutes still, like, what happened was, I remember he had said to me, you can get yourself out of this, like, this is mind over matter now. You have, like, use your breath, Jen, use it. And it was mad because I'm doing the sea swim in a while, like a few years now, and I love the cold, and I know now why I found the sea, because that initial shock, like shit, this is cold, and you have to breathe through it. And that's what I did, lying on that floor. And within 30 seconds the pain was completely gone, and I was ecstatic. And one of the lads on the retreat, he didn't do it, he bottled it, and he says the biggest regret of the weekend, when you only go around the circle at the end, he said the biggest regret was not doing the Sinanyang. He said because I bounced out of that room like a new person. Because on the Friday, I couldn't speak to anyone. I get very socially awkward, and I get afraid, and I get protective, and I can't speak. And on the Saturday, I was like, I was running around the house. I was talking to everyone, and he's like, you're a new person.
Really?
Yeah, he just said there's something shifted in you.
That doesn't sound like the typical retreat that people like, where they get their nails done, the hair done, and facials. No. So what brought you to want to do that?
Plant medicine?
Yeah, that weekend specifically.
For the last couple of years, I've seen people like the mushrooms and stuff has kind of kept coming in, and I was always very resistant to go near any drug because of my past. I would have taken a lot of drugs all through my past, and the thoughts that come down, I was like, I ain't never experiencing that again. Like I associated the plant medicine come down and the fear and how bad my mental health gets when I'm coming down off drugs. I didn't know that it was going to be different, and I wasn't going to take any chance because my mind's very delicate. So there's no fucking way I was going back and putting myself through that. And then just started to educate people I knew, listening to people, and I'm very of the fact that if I'm going to do something, I need to know ins and outs of it. Like, I had never did a yoga class, and yet I'm on yoga teacher training. I never even went to a yoga class, hadn't a clue. So to get with the plant medicine, I was like, no, I'm not doing it. But it kept coming back to me. It just kept, when something is ready in your life, the universe will keep bringing it to you. And it kept coming back. And then my friend went in December, and she told me all about it. And when I heard her experience, I said, right, I have done so much work on myself. I'm ready to see what else is next on my journey. And I knew that the medicine is not a recreational drug that you go on the sesh for a few days. I know that it's an asset. It's a tool that we have that will bring us along on our journey. And that's where my mindset shifted, because I wouldn't go into something if I had doubts, because I know it wouldn't be good.
Because because that sounds very, very intense.
Yeah.
I mean, especially the medicine in the eyes. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah.
What's that called again?
Sinanyang.
Sinanyang. Where's that? Do you know where it's from?
It's the root of a tree from the Brazilian jungle. Okay. So if you're going through the jungle with the Brazilian shamans, they will just root and chop it into your eye, and off you go.
I do think, though, what you mentioned about when you're younger and going out and doing drugs, and the come down is terrible. Yeah. But I do think there's a lot to be said for experiencing ecstasy or anything that brings you up and connects you with people, as long as it is done in as responsible a way as possible. Yeah. So I feel like any drug that you're taking, if you're taking it for the right reasons, it can be good, a good thing. But if you're taking it to escape something and you don't want to go back to that normality, then it can be bad, because you're just going to stay with the drugs then. I feel like I kind of miss that in my life now, because I've got a kid and I'm kind of responsible. And I miss going out and going to a nightclub or going to Ibiza and just basically getting off your head and chatting to random people about random things. That's what I kind of liked about yoga, is that I tried the gym thing. I do still love the gym environment and work hard and pain no gain. I like that element of kind of pushing yourself, but I also like, what I don't like is the value that is so put on aesthetics. Whereas yoga, what I like about it is it's not about looking a certain way or an outcome necessarily. I know it kind of can go that way sometimes, but I met so many weird people in the yoga environment. I thought, this is like being in a nightclub in Ibiza without the drugs. What? Because I first met you, you come to my class, and I remember one. I don't know.
You gave out to me one day. I wore my shoes one day.
Did I?
Oh, my head was all. You didn't give out to me. My head was all over the place, and I was running. And I ran in. You were like, "Take off your shoes," and I was like, "Shit."
Well, was I a bit of a dick when I said
that? No, you were. No. Look, I had to learn respect for the floor and respect for the room, and you were. That was, and I'm. That's the way it is. And sometimes I need direction. And I got direction that day.
Yeah, there's a whole etiquette you don't think about.
No one told me.
No, it's like... So when I remember one time specifically you did my class, I don't know how many you did, but I remember you came up to me afterwards and you asked me something. And I want to be completely honest with you, and I'm kind of ashamed to say this. Oh God,
here we go.
No, I'm ashamed to say this. Right.
What?
I was surprised by your accent, because in yoga, I feel like yoga is quite an elitist pastime, and a lot of people that do it are kind of
from a certain background.
Yeah, you could say like middle class, and But and I feel like that's me judging people, and I do judge. I think we all judge because when you meet someone, like when you came to class, I was like, oh, you're just a lady, whatever, and you came up to me and you had that strong double accent. It's like, do you know Keith Fox?
Yeah.
Do you know Keith?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, yeah.
Keith, I know Keith.
Yeah.
I know Keith well.
He was like the first guest on this podcast, but I'm a big fan of Keith.
Keith's amazing.
Same way that the Buddhist
All right,
philosophy.
Yeah.
I love that though because it kind of opened my eyes to be like, Kev, you need to be less judgmental and just like, and it made me reflect on like what I think of yoga. I thought like yoga it should be for everybody, for male, female, any like whatever your background is. So what do you make of that? My judgment there.
Perfect, 10 out of 10. You hit the nail on the head, and I think that's why I've been on a bit of a crusade the last few years.
Yeah.
Is to just make this accessible to everyone, and to break down that stigma. Like, I struggled for the first year. I've been in counselling over being a yoga teacher. I spent 8 months in counselling. Jesus, it was horrific. Was it a good 8-9 months? Maureen, amazing woman. Exactly what you said. I come from a background of disadvantage, of judgments, of shame, of criminality, of gangland. Everyone I know is up to something. I was always up to something, and I carried that society judgment of what people think of me. I carry that, and then I'm like, shit, I'm gonna try and teach a class, and then I'm gonna open my mouth and they're gonna hear me, and I curse all the time, and fuck, I'm gonna make a mess of this. And I had to go to counselling for a long time to walk past, because that was a core belief of mine, but that wasn't the right one for me. That wasn't what was aligned to where my journey was taking me. So I had to go and sit in that pain. I had to go back and first acknowledge, like, I don't feel good enough to be a yoga teacher. I don't feel good enough that I fit in. Like, it's not easy to say. It's very hard to say it out loud to another person. Like, I don't feel good enough to be in a room with all these people, and then to have to walk through that, and then to have to change that rhetoric that you're telling yourself, because it's not true, and to cry and say, like, but I believe it, so it has to be true because it's right down in me core, in me gut, like. And then constantly having to show up and face that, and walk into a room with 20-30 people and feel like every time I walk in, everyone stares at me like, oh, here we go, here she is, look at her, she's wearing Nike runners, you know what I mean, she's calm and she has spray tan on. I love me bit of tan, do you know what I mean? I love a good tan, and I just wasn't the norm. It's laughing at me.
I love that. It's funny though that these things we pick up, we say it's big thing in yoga, or what thing that's often said is like, don't judge, never judge. That's nonsense. Every single person judge. You have to, when you're crossing the road, I make a judgment. Do I turn left? Do I turn right? Or look left, look right? Yeah. But what you shouldn't do is condemn once you've made a judgment. Is to condemn someone, especially if you don't know them. But I've noticed these patterns in my mind as well, that I remember, like you said about Nike, one of my favorite yoga teachers, her name's actually Maureen as well, but she wore a Nike tracksuit once to class, and I remember thinking, that doesn't seem to go with the yoga philosophy, because it should be like sustainable, and she should be a vegan, and all this stuff, right? And I remember I was that dickhead that used to put on the Instagram bio, vegan. I'd like advertise that I was a vegan. And then, it's a bit like, I know you do CrossFit, but it's a bit like when you meet someone, it's like, how do you know if someone does CrossFit? It's because they tell you straight away. Same with vegans. It's like, if you're a vegan, they like, I'm a vegan straight away.
Well, I give you a laugh about the vegan. I was on yoga teacher training. I was training with Josh Summers, doing my yin training. And I do CrossFit, obviously. So I'm all about, right, I have to eat me protein because I know I'm going to train. And I'm sitting in the class and I have me turkey burgers and me chicken breasts, And if you're vegan, you will tell people. and like they would say to me in the class, like, oh, I'm vegan and such is vegan and we're vegan, and I'm like, well, I'm not, and I'm sitting here with me turkey burgers and I'm not judging anyone, but yeah, it's mad, isn't it? And that's where I was like started to see the difference. You know, I kind of, oh shit, I stand out here like a fucking sore thumb in this crowd. It's a tough crowd.
Yeah, it is, because no one, I think human nature, we want to feel like we fit in and we belong, as you mentioned earlier. And you don't want anyone to ostracize you and make you feel like an outcast. But at the same time, trying to always fit in is like walking on eggshells, where you're thinking, I want to say the right thing all the time, and I want to be in the group.
Yeah.
And whatever the new ideology is with the group, or whether it's like a political movement or
it's like the cancel culture has everybody on the edge.
The cancel culture. Yeah, the cancel culture. So if the cancel culture, you see, the counter arguments of the cancel culture is someone could say, well, we're just making you be accountable for something you say or do, right? But I don't think, I think the cancel culture exists, but I don't think you can be cancelled.
Yeah.
I think it's impossible to be cancelled because everyone has an internet connection, and if you have a phone, you have the means to broadcast. So I think it's actually
the fear more
it's the fear.
so, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the fear,
That's
yeah.
it. It's the fear.
It's the fear
and
of
also the shaming. To be shamed is, no one likes that. But occasionally, sometimes if you are shamed, maybe it can make you reflect.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, because we can all be shamed about something, whether it's eating turkey burgers or wearing Nike or whatever. We can all be ashamed, but it's how we handle it.
Yeah.
And I think that this is why, like, social media can be so brutal, because you feel there's very little empathy. People can like shame you online, but it seems like to me you get a lot of love online.
Yeah, I've been quite lucky. I have only had one or two little kind of comments here or there. Two people, because that's how little or less. But so much love, like so much support, the loyalty that of people who are on my page, the loyalty of people who come to me classes is just. It's overwhelming. Like I did the meditation and the reading this morning, and I was crying at the end of it. Like,
I know, I seen.
Do you know what I mean? It's just I do just feel so blessed, and it's the magic, isn't it? And that's what I want to get across to anyone. Like, this is accessible for everybody. You know, you don't have to suffer alone. That's the thing I'd be trying to say, and I think why my page is kind of, it is doing really well at the minute. It's okay to say that. I never take credit. It's not me, if that makes sense. Like, there's no I'm not doing this. This is us as a collective. We are creating this. And I drill that into everybody. Like, they don't put me on a pedestal. I will fuck up. Like, I will let you down. I'm human. Don't put me on a pedestal. Yeah, I might be the one who is guiding all of this, but unless you turn up for me, we can't engage in this. So I'm very, I don't know what the word for how I say it, but I'm adamant that that's my message.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not God.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not God. I'm not.
The effect that other people have should never be understated, because I have a platform, and it's a membership platform, and I've got a lot of members, and every single day I check to see if anyone's cancelled their membership.
Yeah.
And I'm like, one day they're just going to realise this is shit, or there's better things out there. Why am I spending my money with this guy? Every single day. There's like, it never goes away. And you have that thing where you constantly asking yourself, what makes someone want to come to my class or do something online with me instead of they can go to anywhere in the world now, because we can do all doing it online. But I think if you didn't have that, you'd be a narcissist. You just think you're the bee's knees.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a way of keeping yourself in check. This is commonly, as you've probably heard this expression, imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Right. What's your experience like with that? Because You do seem very, very confident.
With the imposter syndrome, oh God. It's hard one, Kevin, isn't it? It's very hard. Like, it's brought me to my knees. Like, when I was saying just beforehand, when, you know, Pat Divilly, I love Pat, he's my pal, and he's so encouraging, but when I went on his podcast, I was in the middle of a really bad bout of PTSD, and it's something that I haven't experienced for a long time. I would have experienced a lot of violence in my life, and when the lockdowns hit and we weren't unsure what the hell is happening in the world, I just went into, we all have that fight or flight, but I freeze. I go into the fight, flight, or I go into freeze. And even if I was to say to you, like, Kevin, pass us that, like, I'm looking at a cup and I'm like, I know the word, and will you pass that thing to me? And my mind was gone blank, and I couldn't string a sentence. So if you'd asked me to do this with you last year, I'd have had to say, I'm really in a bad place at the minute. Like, I can't do it. So to not have your shit together and be trying to promote wellness and all that stuff, this is where I have to kind of walk the walk and talk the talk. Do I want to be someone who pretends to have it all together all the time, or am I going to just show people, like, this is real life? You know, I may be the person who's on the other end of the class, I may be the one that's guiding, but I have my own stuff. And the imposter syndrome, after Pat's podcast, Renee Brown, one of my pals, I cried for 5 hours the next day. I sobbed. I said, what have you done to yourself, Jen? Like, you're just actually ruining your whole career. Like, you went on one of the biggest platforms. Like, he's really well known. I have no clue what came, if it was going to do well or not. And I was like, everyone's going to laugh at you. It's okay being like on a little small class with your couple of people, and if you fuck up, like, it's not, no one's going to know, only for the few people in your class. But everybody's going to know this one now, Jen, you know. And I was crippled the next day. 5 hours I cried, and I mean, friend sent me the Brene Brown podcast about vulnerability, and she spoke about that, about being vulnerable and putting yourself out there, and what the emotional hangover that comes with it. That's the part that gets me, and I struggle with that still sometimes. And I think the more I walk through it, and the more I am honest, and I just believe in being transparent, that's where my confidence comes from. Every time there was a lockdown, we did the Monday mindset with my class, and I remember that the one where I was really struggling, and there was a new lockdown, and the messages were flying in, like, Jen, are we doing the mindset? Like, help us. Like, we, you know, I just get inundated with messages from people, and I was like, shit, like, they need the tool. They're looking for, and I had to tell everyone on the first day, like, I am struggling. So if you want to show up here with me and we get through this together, like, we'll do it together. Like, I need you as much as you need me at the minute. And I said, and sometimes I'm going to be sitting here, and if you see me struggling to find the word, I'm going to tell you, like, that's the PTSD. That's what's happening to me. I am just, my brain is trying to protect me. It thinks I'm being attacked here. So if I am trying to speak and I struggle a little bit, that's all that's happening to me. Give me a few seconds, give me a minute to find my feet, and I'll come back out of it. And it was probably one of the greatest things I've ever done, because I'm sitting here now with you talking, you know, and even though I'm getting nervous and I'm getting anxious, and I can feel it happening to me again, it's okay. Yeah. It's all right, you know, I'm safe.
That's a big difference between letting that anxiety or that PTSD cripple you compared to getting a crutch, whatever that crutch may be, and going through it. Because I understand people can be really sick and not make it to class, and that's fair enough. But I think I've missed like one class since I've started teaching, and I'm just lucky that I have generally very good health. Like, I'm very rarely sick, properly sick. But it's more so when I'm not, you know, because I've got a baby and you haven't slept well. I feel like you got to deliver it anyway.
Yeah.
And even though I will occasionally say, like, oh, I've hurt my shoulder, or I didn't sleep last night, I'll say it, and then I'll just try to crack on, as opposed to dwelling on it and let it, or not showing up for the class at all. And I think as much as it sounds like I don't know how it sounds, but people do look to you, and maybe look to me to some degree, and want to say like, if this person can do it, I can do it. You know? Because I used to think like, I'm not flexible, I'm not very strong, I can't put my leg behind my head, do any cool stuff really. So what have I got to sell basically? Because I've seen it was all physical thing, but what you're selling, for want of a better word, is that connection that you can try, and you can have a bit of humor when you do it as well. This is another thing, Jen. It's like when I first got to know you in the yoga studio, and you came to the class, you were like always kind of having a bit of crack. You'd be chatting to the person next to you, and that's really unusual. Most people come.
I know,
No, but that's good though.
It's mad that you said that, because I was like...
We're not a church, for God's sake, you know? Like, for God's sake, sorry, God. But, you know, that's what I used to really dislike at the start of the yoga. It's like, everyone's so serious in here. Everyone thinks they're like... I'm
rocking in. All right, what's up?
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I get why some people, it's their chance to be alone and honest, and I respect that. But what I used to kind of... There was a disconnect when the teacher would be really serious and like anything, because I started with Bikram, you see, so they're real serious with that. That was my experience anyway. But that's what I found so different about you, is you it was the accent, and also the fact that sorry, but I love it though.
I'm glad you said this.
I love the accent, by the way.
This is good. Yeah, I'm glad that this is great that this is coming up. I'm glad you noticed it. That's very good. Like, well done. Do
you want some more tea?
Please, yeah.
Yeah, but also humor. Oh shit, humor. What's like your classes like? Do you have a bit of crack and stuff?
Oh, Kev, I swear to God. So we classes are mad. I don't even know how to explain it. So when that experience that I had going to them big studios, I knew that I just felt so uncomfortable, and I felt this is not my vibe. These are not my people, and that's okay. We all have our people, and we know who we can just let our guard down and be ourselves with. And I was like, the journey, the experience, the practices are for me. This is just not the environment that I'm going to be able to reach people in. This is not for me. I'm sitting on the mat and I'm looking around for someone to talk to. You know what I mean? And I'm getting the evil eyes and all that stuff. And that's fine. That's perfectly fine. So off I went, and I was like, there's going to be people like me. Do you know what I mean? There's going to be people like me who are just running out of the gaff waiting the kids. Can't wait to tell everyone that they're either leaving the gaff and the kids. And so I have a studio in Finglas. It's closed at the minute. I rent a room in the next door to Closh to Ida, and it's yoga. And if you walk down the corridor, it's like a corridor into the class. If you walk down that corridor, like, people do stop and look in and all. For the 10 minutes before that class starts, the banter is flying. The stick is flying. You can't come to my class and I'm sensitive, because like, I get the most stick. The lads take the absolute piss rip out of me. Like, but what I will say is, the minute that class starts, they are focused. They are there. They know why they're there, and they don't want, they're there to get the benefits of it. But it's so laid back. Like, everyone would say that's probably what they love, is it's just so laid back. And that's the environment that I wanted to create. And I can have the laugh and I can have the crack, but I can also crack the whip as well when it needs to be. So, bit of balance.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's a connection between that of like, if you can laugh with someone and to take the piss out of them, they take the piss out of you. That's what's the word? You can do that.
Reciprocate.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It shows that trust. And because I know, like, last night I played football for the first time in a long time, and you say about like finding your people. Like, I grew up with like a big bunch of people, and we knew each other all our life, and we still know each other pretty well now. And I really miss that, Jen. Like, I kind of feel it a bit lost, but like when I go to football, everyone's taking a piss out of each other.
Yeah.
And I noticed because the guy who introduced me is actually Rachel's uncle, so therefore I had a bit of an in already. You know, I wasn't completely on my own. Yeah, exactly. So he would take the piss out of me. Other the lads would take the piss out of me, but I'd give it back. And once they mock you and you mock them back, they kind of give you that look of like, "Oh, you're all right.
You're all right.
You can take it.
Yeah,
you can take it a little bit.
Yeah.
But and you mentioned,
and that's where the trust is built. Sorry,
exactly.
Go ahead.
No, absolutely. And you mentioned about sensitivity. You see, what the seriousness of yoga initially put me off, right? But what I find has become even more prevalent than anything else is the sensitivity around yoga, as in now not in my classes, because I started off like this. And raise your arms up and raise your arms down. Like I spoke like that. I never I don't know where this voice came from.
The voice.
Exactly. Oh. I try to make it more effeminate for a start.
Yeah.
And a bit like cleaner and softer.
Yeah.
And everything was breathy.
Yeah.
And then I thought, this is weird. I feel weird doing this. So now I kind of speak like I'm speaking now. But my point is, Jen, is that like in my classes, maybe it's just paranoia, but I feel like I could say some things that might offend someone. You know, like last week I was talking about the hips and I made a reference to what did I make a reference to? Sound like sexual, you know, like saying English fellas don't know how to use their hips and French fellas do, or something like that. But I was thinking on the other end of the camera, you know, on Zoom, someone could get offended by that or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think that you know, the fact that we spend so much time online now, people are becoming a lot more sensitive.
Yeah.
Or am I just making that up? Is that my...
No, it is a lot more sensitive online. Yeah.
But it's almost like you're better off to be ultra sensitive than the other way, because that way you're not going to offend anyone ever. But I think, especially if you want...
you can't live your life like that. Oh my God,
but
imagine that.
If you want to be funny, I like to have a laugh. And that's, can we only live once? We might be dead tomorrow. I like to have a bit of a laugh. Whenever you try and have a bit of a laugh, you know, you're going to risk maybe offending someone. Do you know what I'm saying, or am I going off on a weird one here?
I hear you. But I think everybody, it's kind of the tone that you set, you know. And if you're being your true, authentic self, people who are looking for that will gravitate to you. And if we try and please everyone, like people always say to me, like, you don't do the voice. And they're like, she's just like us, and that's the thing. And one of the girls, actually, she only said there last week, because she said, Jen, she goes, I was only saying it, when you talk like you're standing in the flats, and you're still like, you know, there's no change. It doesn't matter who's in front of me. You could be the CEO of some big company, or you could be a single mom from the flats trying your best. To me, we're all equal. Yeah. So I'm going to talk to him. I'm going to talk to you. The exact same. You know. Yeah. I just see. Just be yourself.
That's so funny that you don't use the voice.
I've had that said loads of times.
Yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah, you don't do the voice.
But from my outside, like looking at your ascension over the last 6 months in particular, and the way you create these communities with the Mindset Mondays and the Soul Sundays and the Sea Swims and the Cacao, all of this stuff is about community. Whereas a lot of Instagram, and I do this, is about how cool can I look, how difficult poses can I do, and I do that to a degree, definitely. So you're creating this community around you. Not necessarily to like with you, right? But I think one of the big appeals, this is my perspective of you, is that you, and I've listened to you before talk about this, you have a difficult upbringing, right? But you refuse to be a victim. Yeah. Yeah. This is like, because, and it's not to, see, with this conversation, it's not to belittle people who have suffered, and everyone's experienced trauma to different degrees. But I feel like not all trauma is the same. You know, some people say I have trauma because, I don't know, they were crossing the road or something. And I know it's all like subjective. But my point is, Jen, you're I would say a survivor. Does that sound a bit extreme? You're not a victim. You don't come across that way.
Not a victim. No. And this is great that this is coming up. This is kind of like everything about me whole mindset of the message that I'm trying to give out. Like, this is a great conversation for me. I'm not a victim, and I think what that means for me is I no longer sit in me shit, and I no longer think, oh, poor me. Like, I have my background in my recovery process, my emotional recovery process. I always say that, like, if people say, like, I'm in recovery, I'm emotionally recovering, you know, and I've a lot of 12-step practice behind me. And one thing I learned was that victims don't recover, you know. And John Lally always robs me saying, I'm like, John, I'm going to trademark that quote. He's always taking me quote, victims don't recover. And sometimes that can be hard to hear. And sometimes people be like, oh my God, what, you can't say that. But that sentence saved my life, because I was immersed in my own self-pity and my own pain. And when a woman sat down in front of me and had enough love, she had enough love to tell me, like, Jem, victims don't recover. And I asked, at the start, my ego was like, who does she think? What the neck of her? She's saying that to me. Like, I'm not fucking coming back here for this. And it was the greatest thing that she could have said, because I need to hear the truth, you know. And I always say, truth without love is brutality. She said it to me with love. She wanted me to get better. She wanted me to be able to break that cycle with my daughter. Mia was 2, and I used to go to this woman every week for guidance. And had I not learned that, yeah, shit has happened to me, and it's been fucking horrific. Like, had I not learned that I can come out of this, my daughter would go down the same road as where I went, you know. So victims don't recover to me means that as long as I keep reliving the past and regurgitating, he did this, he did that, she said it, I was never going to be free. I was never going to be free. My heart was broken. It was shattered. I just had no connection. I had a baby who I couldn't feel at for. It's very hard to say that as a parent. Like, you have your little baby, and I guarantee you now, when you squeeze her, you feel that love. My Mia was 3, near 2.5 before I felt that. She's been with me since day one. I did everything by the book, like from 7 in the morning till 7 at night. Like, they were her times. Like, she's awake from 7, goes to bed at 7, the perfect routine, spotless child. Was like, I did what I was supposed to do because I knew it was the right thing to do, but I couldn't feel it. Couldn't feel anything, you know. And as a young girl, you couldn't tell anyone that. How am I supposed to turn around and say I don't love my child? Like, what the hell? And it wasn't that I didn't love her, because I remember thinking, if I tell the hospital how I feel, like, will they? And I was like, I remember sitting in the car one day, and she was only a little baby, and I was like, if I just ring the CUM and say, excuse me, could you take her back for a few weeks just till I figure out, and this is where my head was at, just till I figure out what I'm doing, because I don't really know what I'm doing here. And I remember saying, if you tell anyone that, they're going to take her and they're not going to give her back to you. So I knew I loved her in that way. I was afraid of losing her. But my heart had no emotional feeling. There was no joy in my life. And that's why that woman said to me what she said, because she knew I needed to find that spiritual connection again. And I used to say to her, like, I'm really struggling. And she used to say, put her in the bed with you and just put your hand on her. And I used to put Mia in the bed beside me, and I'd let my hand just sit on her back and just feel, and just leave my hand. She'd be fast asleep, and just let my hand rest on her. And it was like I was trying so hard, you know. And I do, good night, baby girl, I love you to the moon. And she'd say, I love you, mommy, love you to the moon. And she's back in her own room and all that stuff. And I remember one night, she said, Mommy, love you to the moon. And she's only a little tiny little thing with little blonde curly hair. And I closed the bedroom door, and I remember standing, Kevin, on the landing, very, very similar to where we are now. And my heart exploded. I didn't know what was happening to me. I'd never, ever felt, I'd never felt love before. I didn't know what it was. So if you are growing up through your life without understanding what was love, you don't know. Does that make sense? It's probably very, very confusing. I felt this, like I physically felt a thump in my chest. My heart had opened. My heart chakra had just blew open. And what made that happen was when she said it to me, I remember this voice from somewhere else, not my own negative thinking. Another voice said, she means that. She means that. And what I had done, oh shit, sorry, I didn't think we were going to talk about this today.
Okay.
What I had done in those 2.5 years of her being a little baby is I had built a trusting relationship with her, because in previous experiences everybody left. Every time I let my heart, I let my guard down, they would leave. So I think now in hindsight, looking back, I was terrified of letting this love in, because what if it goes again, you know? And oh shit, sorry.
Okay. Do you want to use this?
No, it's all. Do you know? It's all good. It's just bringing me back. I remember what it was like, and I trusted her. If, you know, and that had to happen in my psyche before it happened in my heart. You know, the connection I had to come from my mind to my heart, and that was the little journey that the two of us were on.
To get to that stage where you were able to hear Mia say, I love you, and you trusted her, how were you like coached? Did they use cognitive behavioral therapy or anything like this?
No, so this was all around 12-step work.
Yeah.
This was what happened. This is where I learned the community. This is where I learned about building that community. But what I had started to do for the first time in my life was look at myself and my actions and my behaviours, and unfortunately the world didn't revolve around me, you know, and that was like the biggest shock in my life, to be told that the world doesn't revolve around you. And yeah, people had hurt me, but I had hurt people as well. I had caused carnage, Kevin. I had my parents emotional hostages, you know, unknowns to me. But if you'd have asked me back then, I'd have told you, like, see me ma, see her, she did this, and it was just this outpouring of blame on everyone. And when I put the plug in that blame and I started to go within, I started to look within, that's when spiritually I started to change, and I started to have that awareness now of myself rather than the external stuff.
That's heavy, isn't
it? Sorry.
No, but that what you said about the two actually tying together about victims don't recover, and also blaming other people and not knowing that you could actually are capable of hurting other people as well, and we are capable of hurting other people.
I caused some damage, Kevin. Jesus, I caused some carnage in me days. And even in relationships that were violent, I'll say, and toxic. And sometimes I'd be afraid to say this because it's like, yeah, domestic violence is horrific, but the only way I was able to break that cycle, Kevin, was for me to finally admit that I had toxic traits that were keeping me in this regurgitating circles, because every relationship was the same, you know. So I had to step back and look at my toxic traits or my unhealthy traits, and I am an enabler. Like, I will swoop in and mind and care and all that stuff, and unfortunately that them characteristics that I have led me into awful situations that no girl should ever have to go in. And I had to stop and look at myself and be like, well, I don't want to experience this again. I don't want to attract someone like that again. So what is it in me that is attracted to a certain type of individual, and what is it about me that's drawn this stuff into my life? Because I'm going through life and I feel like this is all I'm attracting. And that's when I started to learn about your vibration and your frequency, and, you know, I started to see that it's energy, you know, and as long as I'm on that same energy and wavelength, that's what I'm gonna keep attracting into my life.
That topic of domestic abuse.
Yeah.
Just taking that as a case study, like, obviously, if we're just, let's say, domestic abuse, men against women, let's say, because I know it goes the other way too. Let's say men against women. We should be trying to bring up men with more compassion, with more empathy. That should be done constantly, and that's how you raise your kids. And we know when you hear another lad talk about a girl a certain way, are you going to go along with it, or are you going to say, no, that's not right? So that we need to do that, right? Definitely. But what you've brought up is a contentious issue, and is that you realize patterns in yourself, as you said, that were enabling that. Whereas if you didn't do that, we can do all we want to try and make sure the fellas behave, but if you don't do that for yourself and take some ownership, that's it, take some ownership, then you might get caught up in that, because no matter how much in this case we want to let every man be like an angel and whatever, there are going to be rogues, and there are going to be rogues for women as well, all right? So as long as there are, we need to make sure that we're not women, if that becomes your partner, that you can spot the signs and you can get out, as opposed to, because we're not going to live in utopia and everyone's going to be perfect.
I see now that I don't look at people anymore with labels. So I don't look at people as in like man, woman, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife. And this is just where I'm at. I look at people as teachers. So we're all teachers, and having done the healing work that I've done on myself, and what helped me not to go back into that cycle is I started to change the rhetoric of, instead of saying why me, why is this happening to me, I started saying, what is this trying to teach me? Because if the same situation keeps coming into your life, the universe has a big neon sign and it's like, look, Jen, you want to go down this rabbit hole again? Or are you ready to look at this? And a lot of the times, my teachers or the experiences are trying to show me a different way. And I'm just afraid, Kev. I'm afraid of the unknown, and I can go back into, for me, I can go into painful situations because it's familiar. I know how to survive in the pain. It's in a weird way, I can survive in a lot of pain, but put me out here on my own, I don't know what I'm doing. Don't know. I can't cope. I can't cope on my own. And I used to have this kind of mindset of, and it breaks me heart to look back at Jen like that. Do whatever you want to me, but just don't leave me. Because the pain of what I was in, the pain of being alone was a lot worse. So, and I know
fucking hell, Jen.
that's the part that was trapping me. For me, that's the part that was trapping me in difficult situations. Just don't leave me. I'll take whatever shit life's gonna throw at me, but don't leave me on my own, because I couldn't cope with that. And then back to what you said at the start about taking drugs, and me taking drugs and drinking excessively at a stage in my life, that saved me in a way, because they were my coping mechanisms. They kept me alive. Had I not had substances or somewhere to escape, I couldn't sit with what was going on inside. But like everything has a boomerang effect, and it will come back. It will come back, and it will take you by the knees. So you'll only get so long out of that. But for a certain amount of time, things that I used to escape kept me safe in an unsafe environment, if that makes sense. It's very hard to, I hope I'm trying to explain it correctly.
You are.
Sorry.
I'm just what you said, like, you can do what you want to me, just don't leave me. That's like,
it's not a great place to be in.
No. But this is what I mentioned earlier about not wanting to be the outcast, not wanting to be alone. If you want to punish someone badly, if they've murdered a lot of people, you put them in solitary confinement on their own. That's the worst
punishment, isn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, we're saying this after obviously biggest lockdown in Europe, but it's punishment, and therefore something is better than nothing, or something is better than nothing. But
it's meeting a need.
Fucking hell, It's just made me think, like, this is, I'm not supposed to be asking you questions here, but it's just made me think about my relationships. And
it's sometimes it can kind of look back and be like, wow.
Yeah, you know, you can be.
You can see it in your face.
Yeah, you always say, yeah, exactly. You know, you want to blame someone else and blame the other person, and be like, oh, it was, you know, what's wrong with me? But then if I didn't change my habits, I wouldn't be with Rach now. I wouldn't have a baby now. And this is, I'll just say this. I used to have a real problem sharing a bed with a woman, like. Not as opposed to a man, but just sharing a bed with someone else. Like, I'd be in bed and I'd like want my own space and and this sounds like a small thing, but that makes the woman feel like she's not wanted. You know, to have that
cold shoulder. It's very hard. It's very hard to be on the receiving end of that.
Yeah, and it's
without communicating what's going on.
Exactly. Yeah, I was so used to being on my own for so long.
Intimacy is very hard. Very hard.
It's like having sex is kind of sometimes easier when I was younger than the intimacy. Like holding someone's hand, I used to struggle with that. Yeah. Holding someone's hand down the street, I'd be like, this feels too much. But yet you could have sex, and
it's back to that. It's back to the trust. It's back to the fear. You know, it's like that relationship with me and Mia at the start, building that trust with her. You know, and she would, you know, when a little 2-year-old sees their mammy collecting them from school, what does she do? The first thing they do is run, wrap their arms around you and want to kiss the face off you. Mammy, like, you know. And sometimes, Kevin, it's very fucking hard to say, sometimes I would turn my head when she went to kiss me, and I'd kiss my cheek. It was a reaction, like a reflex. And that was a testament to how I felt about myself. I was nothing on her. She was the most beautiful, as happy as little kid. That was a shame that I carried, and I felt like an X-ray. I felt like she could see right through me, so transparent. She knows, you know. And I'd get flashbacks, and I'd hide from her, and it just yeah. Sorry, I can just say it now. I just feel it, but yeah. It's just like what you're saying about the intimacy, and that's the one thing I struggled with, was being intimate with anybody, because I never had it, didn't trust it, didn't know anything about it, didn't want it. But yeah, I would go out, like what you said, I can go out and I can have sex and I can do stuff because there's no feeling to it. I know he's gonna live.
Oh shit.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
But when he wants to stay, things get different. I start panicking. Yeah. You know, when someone wants to stay, it's different.
I remember when I was young. This is something I never told anyone this, but this is when I was. Well, no, I say young. I was in my mid-20s. Yeah. But I was a late start when it came to the women, and I went out with this girl for like a month, maybe 6 weeks. Yeah. And she didn't want to go out with me anymore. She was like, "Call me up." No, I'm not really feeling this. Yeah. Jen, this is so embarrassing. I paid for a course, right, and it was like howtowinherback.com or something like that.
Oh God, me heart.
So sad, so sad, right? This is so pathetic. I was like, and you know what? The first question they ask you, this is Jen. This is after dating for 6 weeks. This is pathetic. But it's
it's not. Come here from us.
They're like,
that's mild.
They said like, first things first, before you even pay for this course, if she doesn't want you, don't pay for this course. But if she's angry at you, then it's worth paying for this course. Because if she's angry at you, she feels something, and you can win her over. But if she feels nothing for you, turns out she felt nothing for me, because paying for the course, I tried all the tricks that they're like, text this at this time. I was like, like they gave you templates to text. Oh God. Hey, you babe, and all that stuff. And it was all American language. I was like, hey, you babe. I'd never said babe before, and it didn't work. But the point is, like, I would go out with someone for a few weeks and they'd break up with me because when I'd meet someone, I'd absolutely overwhelm them with affection initially, right? Not public affection. I know that sounds weird, but and they do that, and then it puts women off a lot. They get off.
We don't like the needy.
And then I try and play it cool after that, and it's too late, you know. But yeah, so no, it's like how you feel about yourself though is I think I'm sure if a psychologist sat me down, like who maybe some Sigmund Freud stuff would say like about my relationship with my mum, or so, I don't know, because I'm a bit of a like I really love my mum, and I don't know how that affects my relationship with women, or did. But anyway, sorry, this is not a counselling session. By the way, do you still go to have a therapist or a sponsor? Do you still have?
So Noreen is me counsellor. We do CBT. I've been doing CBT for years. That was a game changer. See, the one thing that kept me in that the one thing I believe that kind of caused me more harm than good was counselling. The type of counselling that my key worker sent me to. We used to go for these sessions every week, and all I would have to do was keep regurgitating everything that happened. Like from it was like a life story every time I went in. So every time I left, I was like, I'm going to the office. I need a drink. This is too much. And I remember the counsellor said to me one day, like, something bad happened to you. And I don't think it was sexual, but something bad happened to you. So for the next 2, 3 years, 4 years, I was like blackout drinking, trying to figure out, was it this time? Was it that time? Consumed, like I'd be on the bus, I'd be driving, consumed in my mind, like, what was it? Let's pinpoint what was the root of why I'm like this. And it was nothing got to do with that. So it was only when I found CBT and Enda Kenny, not Enda Kenny, jeez, he's bleeding kill me if he hears me saying that. That's the Taoiseach, isn't it?
Yeah, well, former, yeah.
Former Taoiseach, not Enda Kenny. Oh God, he's going to kill me. Enda Murphy. He's like, Jen, I'm going to kill you. So I was in college. I went to college to study counselling in addiction studies to try and figure out what the hell was wrong with me. This is how mad I am. I'd be just looking for answers all the time, and ended up doing CBT modules. And the counsellor, or the tutor, Enda Murphy, is one of the country's leading CBT specialists.
Oh, really?
Oh, unbelievable. And he specifies in eating disorders with women. And it was amazing. We are the best of friends. Like, he became my tutor, he became my therapist. Like, so I practiced CBT for so many years, trained in it, practiced it. And then, when did I go to Norway? About maybe a couple of years ago, 2 years ago. When I moved, I got a new apartment. And when I moved, it was all kind of around the time I started teaching, and my confidence was knocked. And I went to see Noreen. And the work that I did with her over the last 2 years has probably been the most profound inner work that I've done, because now I am on a different footing, absolute different footing. And if I feel like I'm getting wobbled again, if I feel like I can become dependent on the counsellor. Like, I'll just keep going. I'll just keep going because I get a safety feeling from it. And I remember she said to me, Jen, now, you know, we've got 2 sessions left. And straight away, like, my stomach is like, oh, she's rejection, you know, that. And I was like, no, Jen, this is a good thing now. We need to cut the ties. And she has to, you know what I mean? I have to let me stand on my own 2 feet. And I said to her, I'm panicking a little bit, but she says, no. She said, Jen, you're ready. There's nothing else. There's not a stone in your life that you haven't uncovered. She said, you know these tools inside, out and backwards. She said, the only thing that ever happens to you is you get a little bit spun, you'll panic. I put my pen down, I stopped doing my little journaling, I stopped doing my to-do lists and all that stuff. She says, all that happens to you is you just need someone to say, you're grand. So a little bit of a reassurance. She said, so at any time, if you feel like you're getting a little bit overwhelmed, pick up the phone. She's like, I'm here. Yeah. So, when did I talk to her last? January. Checked in with her, all good. And she's like, I know you're all right. Like, I can hear it in you. You're grand. Now, if anything happens down the line, she'll be the first person I go back to. Love it.
You know she's there, phone call away.
Oh, absolutely love CBT. I love what it's done for my mind. I love now that I can bring that into all my practices. I bring it through all my mindset, and that's where Noreen, the work I did with Noreen, is where the Monday mindset came about. Oh. Because when I went back to her in an awful state, the first thing she said to me was, "You put the pen down again, Jen, didn't you?" And I was like, "I did. Put the fucking pen down." And now look at the mess I'm in again. And for me, someone with the type of mind that I have, I just need to be organised, Kev. When I'm organised, things are okay. When I'm not organised, I don't know me left from me right. I'm leaving the shopping in the shopping centre and walk. do you know what I mean? The bread is going in the fridge, the milk is in the bin. That's the way my head goes when I'm not organised. And so the Monday mindset came about. I was like, well, if I'm feeling like this. Who else is struggling like this? Throw on the PTSD as well. The brain fog from the COVID was horrendous for everyone. So in the Monday Mindset came about, then I developed this little format for myself with the stuff I'd learned with the CBT, with the 12-step stuff that I learned, that I kind of live that anyways. That's part of me DNA now, you know. I'll always live by spiritual principles. And it works for me. And I was like, well, if it works for me, I'm just fucking stone mad on the best of days. Like, who else is this? So simple, you know. And it just took off. It has just blown up. It's amazing. Like
CBT,
cognitive behavioural therapy. Yeah.
And that's Murphy.
Murphy. Yeah.
I'm gonna check him out because I think I may have heard of him before.
Yeah, he has a lot of books. He would do a lot of work with Dr. Harry Barry. Dr. Harry Barry is the country's leading specialist on depression and mental health, and they both specifically work with a lot of youths as well. Two amazing men. And I actually did a bit of work with Dr. Harry Barry as well. I was going to him, and I remember him he's like, Jen, I'll just tell you the truth, like, that relationship that you're in, you're never going to get better. You know, it's not good. And I'm very good at taking direction. I want to be better, Kev. You know, I want to be the best version of myself. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. I think life has ground me into the ground. Like, I submit. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I submit. Okay. I'm willing to learn, and that's, I think, the best thing that I ever had from all the experiences, the violence and the abuse and everything. What I got from that is the gift of desperation. And if I didn't have that gift of desperation, I wouldn't be here today. And you're looking at me there in shock, like, what is she on about now? But to me, that gift of desperation took me off my knees and stood me on my feet. And it's like, right, what do I need to do? I became the most disciplined person in the world. My friends, they say the consistency, Jen, like, you're just consistent. And I'm like, because I know. Yeah. I know what happens when I'm not. I know what way I go when I'm not.
Say that phrase one more time. The what of desperation?
The gift.
The gift of desperation.
The gift of desperation.
You drop some bombs here. Some serious philosophy bombs.
Yeah. The gift of desperation. It's like when you're willing, Kev, when you're willing to go to any length, like what they'll ask you in any recovery, like, how willing are you to get better? Are you going to waste me time here? Are you going to step up and walk the walk? And I want to walk the walk and not just talk it. I want to be happy. I don't want to be suffering anymore in pain going around.
Yeah, you're definitely walking the walk.
I'm trying my best.
You are.
I think it just becomes part of you now, doesn't it? Like, just becomes part of you.
It's that stage initially of the imposter syndrome, and then when you have, as you mentioned earlier, people giving you, saying nice things, giving you feedback, you start to believe in yourself more, and then it's second nature, and then suddenly you are that person.
Yeah.
It will creep in, the imposter syndrome, here and there.
What does it say? What's that saying? It takes a village to build a man. Is it?
A village to raise a child.
It takes a village, and that's what we create here in our communities, our little villages, you know. And now I'm out sea swimming, and your heart does be just full when I'm out there at the sea, and it's, you know, you just get to, there's a whole other community there.
Yeah.
You know.
It's really refreshing. I'm a fan of yours. So Jen, that's our hour. As you know, the baby and the dog will be back soon.
We'll be back now in a minute.
We'll be barking, whatever else. So if people want to find you, where do they go?
Oh yeah, Yin Yoga Jen. That's me, social media, me Instagram page.
Yeah, and you got a website.
I have a website, but I've not been near it. I'm hoping. Oh well, I can say this now. I am studying the coaching with neuroscience, and I will be qualified now in August. So I will be launching my website and me coaching me, because that's everyone always says, like, Jen, can I book in for a 1-to-1 session? And I've worked 10, 11 years in mental health. I know the stuff inside out, and I just think me coaching now is just kind of bring it all together, and me confidence then to go out on my own working one-on-one, because it's all right when you're working in services, you have a team. You have a manager and a line manager, and you have your team behind you. So building myself and my confidence to go out now and step on my own is the next step. Yeah. So September, keep a lookout.
I'm looking forward to following your ascension. So
yeah,
thanks so much. That was brilliant.